So good morning everybody. Today we are going to take verbal and non-verbal communication. Now if you look at the picture, in this picture itself, you will find that one picture you have people, a family, they are talking to each other, and it was at that particular time that this photograph was taken. So apparently there is verbal communication happening. Some of them are smiling, some of them are talking, some of them are looking forward and things like that. So a lot of verbal and non-verbal communication is happening. But look at the second picture. The second picture is actually you can say that they are mannequins, or maybe they are cutouts. You can see a man handing out biryani to the lady or to the girl, and it is basically non-verbal communication because there is no speech involved, there is no talk involved. At the same time, through the expressions we can understand that the lady or the girl is apparently happy at receiving the biryani, and he is also apparently excited at having to given this, and maybe she will to ask her the taste or something like that. So this is basically what we are going to talk about. We're going to talk about verbal and non-verbal communication and how it affects our lives. We've had a revision of this before, but since this is again a portion that you have to study, we just keep repeating whatever we have said again and again, so that it will be a thorough revision for you during your examination. So what is important about communication? Communication is the exchange of information through verbal and non-verbal channels. Gestures and body language are also as important as words spoken. So you see, you can see this girl speaking through a mic, and she appears to be very confident. You can see the body posture. You can see she's sitting straight or erect, and at the same time you can see the participants eagerly listening to her. Through her communication or through the mic, she is naturally speaking out loud. So there are so many things that we can understand from this photo, and apparently the atmosphere should be clear. This is a sort of air-conditioned classroom or maybe a hall. So the audience might be listening also intently. Now, what type of communication are there? We have the verbal communication and we have the non-verbal communication. Verbal communication is expressed through words, and non-verbal communication is expressed through gestures, body language, and facial expressions. Both these types of communication can convey different meanings depending on the context. Verbal communication, when someone talks to you, it conveys a different meaning. Non-verbal communication, when expressed through gestures or body language, also can convey a different meaning. Now, what are the forms of verbal communication? We've got spoken and written. Now, in spoken, face to face, here I am talking to you. How do you know that I am talking to you? If you look into the camera now, you will see that I am looking straight into the eyepiece, or I am looking at you. Apparently, I'm looking at you, and you can see that I'm smiling. So my face-to-face conversation or my online face-to-face conversation shows that I am extremely happy to teach you, and hopefully you are also enthusiastic to learn. This is a face-to-face conversation. It can also be a phone call. I can take my phone and talk to a particular person. This could also be called as an online meeting, where I am addressing you or I am talking to you. This could also be a presentation, where I am talking through a presentation. The presentation is shown to you and I am talking along with it. Public speaking is what politicians and people do, where they address a very large gathering. This is also spoken communication. Now, you also in the same verbal communication, you also have what you call written communication. See, look at emails, letters, reports, memos, and text messages. All these things can be read. I can read it out loud. A letter, I can read an email out loud. I can read a letter. I can read it. So this is also a form of verbal communication, but written. So what are the forms of verbal communication? You have spoken and written communication. And these are the examples for both of them. In forms of verbal communication, these are certain key aspects. One is the language. Now, it is very important that you speak the same language as what your audience needs. അതായത് ഞാൻ സംസാരിക്കുന്നത് ഇംഗ്ലീഷിലോ മലയാളത്തിലോ ആയിരിക്കാം. സപ്പോസ് ഐ നോ ഫ്രഞ്ച്, എനിക്ക് ഫ്രഞ്ച് അറിയില്ല, എന്നാലും സപ്പോസ് ഐ നോ ഫ്രഞ്ച്, ആൻഡ് ഇഫ് ഐ ടോക്ക് ടു യു ഇൻ ഫ്രഞ്ച്, ഐ മീൻ യു വിൽ നോട്ട് ബി ലിസണിങ്. കാരണം നിങ്ങൾക്ക് ഫ്രഞ്ച് അറിയില്ല. മേ ബി യു വുഡ് ഹാവ് ഹേർഡ് എ ലിറ്റിൽ ബിറ്റ് ഓഫ് ഫ്രഞ്ച്, ഓർ യു ക്യാൻ understand a smattering of French, but generally we tend to speak in Malayalam or English, maybe a little bit of Hindi, because generally we are trilingual. We understand 3 languages. So the choice of the language is very important. The same way the dialect also. Thrissur bhasha and Kannur bhasha. Thrissura voy pooram kanan ammitta potti. That's Thrissur bhasha. The same dialect can be different in Kannur. It's also different in Trivandrum. But dialects, at least I think maybe some of you, definitely most of us Keralites are able to adapt to dialects. But we must understand that the listener should be fluent or understandable of your dialect. So they should be able to understand how you speak to them. Next is the tone. The tone of the voice can convey emotions, intentions, anger, enthusiasm, or empathy. We practice that in class, how our tonal voice, when we speak very low, when we speak in a loving voice, when we speak in an angry voice, how our tone changes, and how these tonal variations can cause emotional changes in the other person. So that's the tone. Next is clarity. The way I speak, it should be clear and concise. So I'm speaking to you by making pauses in my sentences. I can speak very fast, but then when I speak very fast, some of you may not be able to understand. So what I do is I put a pause at certain places, and because of that pause, you are able to understand a little bit more clearer. So clarity is very important in verbal communication. And also listening. You are listening to me, and that is effective listening, active listening, and you understand. And if I ask you a question, I'm sure that many of you will respond. But since this is an online class, I'm not asking you a question. So in class, when I ask you a question, immediately you respond. So active listening is what you're doing. So the key aspects of verbal communication are the language, the tone, the clarity, and the listening aspect of language. So in verbal communication, as we said, we can use clear pronunciation, proper intonation. The volume also is very important. I speak in a very low voice. Can you understand me? It's a whisper. Can you understand me? It's slightly low. Can you understand me? It's loud. So you see, 3 different voices that I have done with this is how I can, appropriate my volume. Concise messaging. When I talk to you through messages, it should be clear and understandable. And also, I should talk to you with confidence. How can I be confident? If I know the lesson, if I have revised the lesson, if I have made the PPT myself, then I am confident that what I am talking is what I know. So this is confidence. So yesterday night onwards, I sat and made this PPT myself. I put in the images. Certain images, of course, were AI generated, but then most of the things I also added. And because of that, I am very confident that any part of this particular PowerPoint, you ask me a question, I'll be able to answer you. So that is confidence. The confidence is very important in verbal communication. Now, there are some barriers. See, look at the image itself, you can find the barrier of this person trying to jump from one rock to another. Naturally, he may not be able to jump because there's a heavy lead ball or an iron ball weighing him down. So if he tries to jump and he gets there, immediately he should fall down. So this is a lovely graphic of how there are barriers in verbal communication. Let's see what barriers are there. One barrier is, like we had in the college, the sound of the compactors, the sound of the excavators, the sound of people of the cement mixing. So many noises that happen in the surroundings. The language barriers, of course, we don't have much language barriers in the classroom, but if you have a multicultural classroom, then you might have people speaking in French and Spanish and even African countries like Libya or let's say Nigeria. So they may not be able to understand English very well. So in a multicultural classroom, it will be more difficult for the teacher to speak one particular language. But generally, English is spoken as the spoken language or the language of everyone. The same way, you could also have lack of attention. There will be students that are disinterested. There will be students that are actively listening. I mentioned that also in the class. Some of you are very eager to listen. Some of you are passive listeners. Some of you just shut off. Just close your. You look at me, but then you are not in this classroom. Things like that. So active listening. These are certain barriers that can be there during what is known as a verbal communication. So when I talk to you, of course there will be people who have lack of attention. There will be when I talk, maybe you might misinterpret my tone. Language barriers and also noises and distractions. So in non-verbal communication also, body language is very important. The emotions, the attitudes, the postures, the gestures, and also eye contact. All these things are very important in non-verbal communication. If you notice, I've got two monitors. So I look into the monitor because I have the notes there. But at the same time, most of my time, I am trying to focus on you. So I'm trying to focus my eyes on you so that you will be able to understand more clearly and you will be able to see my expressions. Now, there are certain examples of verbal communication. Facial expressions can convey emotions such as happiness, sadness, anger, surprise. That's a surprise. Gestures can, have different aspects. All these things, you've seen these things. The posture also, the way you sit, the way you react, all can show signs of confidence, signs of interest, and also signs of attentiveness. In body language, these things, eye contacts, facial expressions, which I've already mentioned. You've also got what you call proxemics. You must have seen proxemics. I think one day I showed that to you in class. When I go and sit near a person, immediately that person, suddenly reacts by moving. Now this is proxemics. That person has a personal space around. So I am not supposed to intrude into that personal space. As a teacher, I'm supposed to know that. Now between classmates, maybe the proxemics would be a little bit closer. That's okay. So proxemics is the between classmates, between teacher and student, between you and strangers, between you and fellow travelers in a train or bus. So for all this, the word is known as proxemics. And what is proxemics? The use of personal space to communicate comfort or boundaries. So what is your comfort? How do you feel comfortable with your cousin or with your brother? What is the proxemics that you use? Do you sit close to them? Do you sit distant to them? Do you set boundaries when a teacher is talking to you, or when you talk to a teacher? How close do you get? All these you have to, and this particular term is known as proxemics. So this is the end, and this is the conclusion. And what is the conclusion? Effective communication combines verbal and non-verbal communication skills. Good eye contact, active listening, and clear speech can definitely enhance your message. Thank you very much.